So, and it is nice to be wanted. So,
Yes, it is. It is always nice to be wanted, and you
Yes,
have,
it
even though
is.
you're getting through the short timers part of it, you have that end goal. You see the end, the finish line's there, and
Yeah, I have a lot less patience though. I just cut straight to the thing going, no, this isn't going to work. Or you should do it this way instead of trying to, you know, get them to come around to that. I'm just straightforward now. It's like,
hey, Anita, look at that. As soon as we go live, Anita is
yeah,
always there.
yes, she is.
We still got to get her on the show. Anita, I know you're listening. Get a hold of me so we can figure out time to get you on the show too. All right. Well, speaking of, welcome everybody to another episode of Spilling Ink. We're the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And this face down there, you should know, he's been on the show before. It has been a while, but he is very important, and we are excited to have him back to talk about all the new things that StoryOrigin is doing. So welcome, Evan.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be back. I think it has been several years at this point, and it is I enjoyed the last time I was on, and I'm looking forward to being roasted.
No, we don't do roasting.
I thought we were doing roasting. Oh, dang it.
We did have a guest one time that roasted all of us. It was kind of fun.
Wow. Normally it's like a bunch of people roasting one person, not one person roasting like several other people. That just seems like, I mean, it's just not a fair fight.
Apparently my background space looks like a child's bedroom, so that was what I took away from it.
And that night I had the granny shirt on.
I don't know what
I didn't
granny
know it
shirt.
either.
You have a shirt that is the granny shirt though, which is, I love that.
Apparently I do. I have something that screams Grammy. And I have a grandmother, so I didn't really get offended.
I mean, it would have to be like basically I just imagine like a floral wallpaper, but like on a shirt. That's what I would have to assume it is.
It wasn't.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
No, I didn't look like Mrs. Roper. So,
well, on that note, no, we're not roasting anybody, but we are going to like pick your brain on all the fun details of stuff that's going on with StoryOrigin. But before we get into that, for anybody who doesn't know what StoryOrigin is, for anybody finding our show for the first time or just hearing StoryOrigin for the first time, give us a little quick overview of what StoryOrigin does.
Yeah, sure. So StoryOrigin is a marketing platform for authors to help you find reviewers, build your mailing list, increase sales, manage deadlines, and most recently, sell your book directly to readers.
Don't forget beta readers.
And beta readers. I mean, the list could go on. I kind of like
condensed
lump the managed deadlines is like the goal trackers feature and the beta copies feature, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Newsletters, marketing help. I mean, we could just keep listing stuff.
Exactly. What is the most used tool on your platform?
I mean, I would say most people, when they hear about StoryOrigin, they come to it for the reader magnets feature in building their mailing list, because that is just generally when you are like in a bunch of Facebook groups with authors and stuff like that. Like mailing list building is always a topic of conversation. Authors don't talk a ton about like how they manage their beta copies and managing feedback from beta readers. Even though that's like one of the features that when I hear from authors, they're like, I love that feature. I did not realize this is what I needed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say it's more like the cross promotion, reader magnets, universal book links. Those are like the newsletter swaps, group promos and stuff. Those are generally the more frequently used ones. And because authors are always like, how do I build my mailing list and how do I increase sales?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's step one that everyone's told in marketing. What you need to do is you got to build
Yeah.
a newsletter. You got to get the stuff out there, and then you're like, well, what do I do? But beyond that, like the author tools, being able to track the word counts, being able to get the beta reader, get the chapters out to be beta read, so you can get feedback, so you can fix those chapters. The stuff, the daily nitty gritty stuff as an author that you need. Those are some tools that StoryOrigin helps with. And God, is it helpful when you can actually get good feedback on your stories before they get published?
Yes.
About that a lot. Finding good beta readers is so hard, and it's not that we send our stuff out and somebody's, oh, that's great. That's not helpful. It is helpful to know when we have hit a target, but when we haven't maybe hit a target quite right, to know why. The really good feedback is so crucial to fixing it before it gets out there and gets a bad review.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's really hard to get feedback from readers, especially readers that have not beta read before, but they might know the genre really, really well. And so when you hand them a manuscript, here's my Word doc, and they just read through the whole thing and they're like, that was great, I loved it. And you're like,
what and
like I need more than that, right? Yeah. So that's like why. So I like StoryOrigin. There's other like services and stuff that you can manage beta copies on, but I think StoryOrigin is the only place where readers actually have to leave feedback on a chapter in order to access and read the next chapter. So it just puts up like, hey, you gotta actually leave feedback throughout the book, so I know what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong, and then you can provide guidance to those readers too, like, are there any scenes in here that are boring, or like, what do you think about this like interaction and things like that, to give guidance to those readers that maybe aren't haven't beta read before.
Yeah, and as Anita's saying, on the author side of it, being able to go through that feedback is so useful too, making sure it is categorized by the chapter, so you're not searching for, something that they're saying at the end of the book as I read the whole manuscript, and you're like, but I need to find it, which chapter was it in, where did I make this mistake, where did I need to make this correction, where did this character go off the rails? Going chapter by chapter, you can pinpoint easier and you can get that fix in quicker.
Yeah. And for it, so anyone that's not familiar with the beta copies feature too is the way it works is all of the readers get their own copy of the beta of they don't see anyone else's feedback on the manuscript. But you as the author see all of their feedback in one place for you, which is much nicer than having like 5 separate Word documents be sent back to you and then like trying to compile all
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from a beta, because I've beta read as well, from a beta reader, this is my preferred method of beta reading, because it's very easy to go through. And I just prefer it that way. I'd rather, if I'm going to beta read for somebody, I'd rather do it through StoryOrigin than the manuscript, because the manuscript, I go into editing mode,
right?
which I don't think they really want me to edit their work. They want feedback on things like that. But if I got the Word document in front of me, I can't not.
Yeah. You just end up fixing all the typos and being like, here it is. Okay, but what about the plot?
Right, exactly. Because you lose sight of that. And I have mentioned a couple, typos in the beta thing, but I like the fact that I could just leave
that end of chapter feedback.
Yep. You hit the mark, or you missed it. This is why I think you missed it. So as a beta reader itself, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Especially with the leading questions that the author gets to ask.
Yeah.
So
way back in the day, that was actually how I dealt with my beta readers. Was I would have specific lists of questions, and I would only send chunks of the manuscript out, because I needed that more just pinpointed feedback. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that style was exactly how I like to do it. So the fact that StoryOrigin has that, it's like, oh, perfect. You don't have to set anything else up. You can just go through there and all of your stuff is already there, which makes it so much easier to have that interconnectivity too.
Yeah, and you don't have to manually be, okay, you read the first 5 chapters and you completed my Google form. Now I'm going to email you the next chunk, and the next time someone else in your beta reader group reads the thing, then you have to email them their next chunk, and remembering all that stuff and keeping up with it all can be it can be a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So props to you for managing such a refined beta reader process. Because I know, like, the Story Origin process is designed off of authors who did it like that, and then being like, this is a good process. It just is really, really clunky from the author perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reader perspective too.
Yeah, because they only
Again,
get pieces and they can't, they may finish
They have
it.
to wait on your
and-
email to get, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
Exactly.
streamlining the process is good. And this is why we've loved Story Origin for so long, is you've found things that we need as authors that are going to help us on the writing side and the business side, and you've made them accessible, and you keep expanding. Now, last week we talked about, was it last week or the week before? I think it was the week before.
Last week.
We talked
No,
about
the week before. I'm like,
time.
no,
Yeah,
it wasn't last
time
week.
doesn't exist anymore. We talked about direct sales. And that Story Origin has the beta going now. I want to like dive deeper into that because I'm so interested in this. This is something I know we've talked about plenty of times. How do we bypass the big stores and actually get our stuff into readers' hands in a cost-effective way that's actually better on the royalties end for us and better on the sales end for our customers?
Yeah, so the direct sales feature is now publicly available, actually.
Oh,
so
cool.
anyone can access it on their Story Origin dashboard. Yeah, so direct sales is something I've thought about for years and years and years. But I never felt like there would be a good way to do it necessarily until I found this cool service called Lemon Squeezy. They act as the merchant of record, and like easy peasy lemon squeezy. They act as the merchant of record, which is really great for authors because they handle collecting and remitting sales tax and VAT tax. So you as the author don't have to register, I live in Texas. If I sell anything in Texas, I have to register to collect and remit sales tax. If I use a normal payment processor like Stripe or something, they're not acting as the merchant of record. But Lemon Squeezy does act as the merchant of record. So they are responsible for collecting and remitting that sales tax. They'll add it onto the transaction and stuff, and they're registered in all the states and countries and all that. So it is when I found that service, I was like, this is going to be monumental for authors, because if I can have a payment provider that will act as the merchant of record, then Story Origin can also build on top of that to build all of the file delivery and taking care of the reader tech portion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Provide that one-stop shop where they've already got all of their information inputted into Story Origin. They've built up their book. They built up their, their readers. They built up their mailing list through there. And now you can extend it into direct sales.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's, one less thing that you have to think of, but one more thing that's going to help you as an author get your stuff out there in a new way.
Yeah. And the major trend over the past several months, because direct sales has become a lot more popular in recent months, and what all of the authors that are doing well with direct sales are pushing is building Shopify stores, which is expensive.
Yeah.
It is quite expensive.
I looked at it.
Yes. And you don't just need to pay for Shopify itself. Shopify is not built for authors. Shopify is not really built for anyone. It's very agnostic in terms of what it does. It's, it is a platform for e-commerce. And so to make it work well for authors, you need to have all these additional plugins and services that you integrate with it to make it work well for an author like bookstore. Story Origin, you don't need any plugins, you don't need to install any plugins to make it work for you as an author, because StoryOrigin is for authors. So everything's designed around authors from the get-go. So yeah, like one of the major things, you're going to be paying for Shopify itself, but then one of the other major things that you'd probably want to do if you are taking direct sales seriously is you want to upsell readers on purchasing like the full series, because that's where you really make the money. When you sell an ebook direct, and this is going to be true regardless of which payment provider, like which like payment platform or payment processor you use, there's always going to be like a 30-cent transaction fee. And then the percentage fees on top of that do vary by provider. But there's always going to be like at minimum a 30-cent transaction fee. So if you're selling a 99-cent ebook, like you're not really getting a better royalty rate on selling a 99-cent ebook than you are if you just like publish direct to Kindle and RNKU and all that stuff, right? So the way that you really make much more money in direct sales is by selling like a $25 or like a $20 or $25 collection of your series as a single book, and you upsell readers on, hey, you can buy this single book for 99 cents or $2.99 or whatever, but you can save $20 or however much by buying the entire series in one go versus buying each book individually. And so you would need plugins to do that kind of a thing on pretty much any other platform. But on StoryOrigin, that's just baked in. It's just like you just hit a drop down and say, like, here's the other book. Here's the other thing that I want to upsell.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Here's one in the series, but here's the full series.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I do like that feature.
Yeah.
Now, Jane, you have done this. You've set up your store and everything.
Yes.
Give us your take on the ease of use, how quickly you were able to get yourself going.
Well, considering I have 82 books.
Okay, maybe you're the wrong example.
Yes. Outside of my own neurosis of making sure the books were, perfect, as perfect as they could be, since I got pro writing aid, so I've been like massively redoing stuff. The ease of putting it up on Lemon Squeezy and StoryOrigin was really quick. It's like putting up a review copy, but with a little bit more data, to link it to Lemon Squeezy and to link it to the upsell. It was really easy. It's just I have so much. I just have so much. But now all my single books are connected to the series as an upsell. So instead of the user trying to go through all 6 books or whatever, however many books I have in the series, they can actually get the whole series. And I did a couple tests. I did, directly with Lemon Squeezy to get the digital book myself. So that worked out beautifully. And then I did it through the webhook or the website, and that was very easy. The one thing I will say that I'm not sure if others have said is maybe at some point a shopping cart like functionality.
Yeah.
That's the only catch-22 that I've heard. But yeah.
You mentioned that last week too, that if somebody is looking for books in this series and books in that series that are all your books, that's where shopping cart would probably come in handy. But for individual authors, if they don't have that many books, it's not as important of a feature.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're upselling to a single series, then that's, you want them to go to the series. But for somebody with such a broad number of series, having a shopping cart would be kind of a nice thing instead of having them going in and out. But
yeah, for sure. I agree. So yeah, for those that are not necessarily following along on when you set up a direct sales page on StoryOrigin and set up your website with StoryOrigin and have those direct sale ebook pages up there. A reader would have to buy each of those products separately. And the reason
Even on
is,
Lemon Squeezy.
yes,
Yes. So
even on
it's
Lemon
in either
Squeezy.
place. Yeah.
And the reason you can't do it on StoryOrigin is because Lemon Squeezy's API doesn't support multiple products in a single checkout session. So I've given Lemon Squeezy that same feedback too, of like, hey, I want to be able to build shopping carts for authors' websites too, so that, you know, readers can buy multiple books in a single purchase instead of having to purchase, you know, each on a separate individual page. So they've said that I think that they'll have it done by the end of 2024.
Oh, that's awesome.
Of being able to have a shopping cart. And then from there, you know, I would have to also build that into StoryOrigin with the website builder feature too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did mention it to them too, because they reached out when I opened the account and asked if there was any feedback, and that was one of the feedbacks I gave them too. So, so it's consistent.
Yeah, I'm sure they've heard it from many, many people. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
as
I
with all
think
things, it takes time. Trial and error
Yes.
is the best way to figure out, you know, what is going to be helpful, what's not going to be helpful, what works, you know, what's needed. Nobody has the magic crystal ball to know everything right at the, you know, the get-go.
Right. And it's always good to release something and then just continue to iterate on it, rather than, you know, spend years, you know, in a cave working on a thing. And then, like, you know, StoryOrigin does so much now, right? And if I released StoryOrigin today after, you know, working on it for 6 years, building all these features into it, it wouldn't be nearly quite so polished either too. You know, it probably wouldn't, you know, work quite as smoothly, just because I take feedback from authors and go, oh, okay, this is a little thing here that I could make this like UI or user experience like a little bit smoother. Yeah. So,
and speaking of working for years in a cave, you have been a one-man operation this whole time. That's what you said before the show started, and that's an amazing thing just by itself.
Yes.
You created so much as a one-person operation. How have you been able to do that, and do you sleep?
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that I'm like maybe some robot or something. I am a human person. This is not just like a human suit on a robot body. I managed to sleep, and it actually, one of the things that is great about being a sort of a one-man show is I am the customer support, but I'm also the engineering department. So if I get a bunch of emails from authors saying, hey, how do I do this or how do I do that, and I can put my engineering hat on and go, I'm going to go change the website and make this easier so people stop emailing me about it.
Yes.
So I'm able to very quickly like cut down on the amount of like customer support questions I get, because I can also just fix things and make them easier to use. That's not to say that I don't want to get emails from people. I do want to get emails from people because that is how I make things better. So getting feedback from authors is a really valuable part of, it's really valuable to me in StoryOrigin stuff. So yeah, that is that is how I do things.
Oh, acting as the customer support, that is the hardest job I think ever.
And you do it well.
Hats off to you. I've worked in customer support before, and some of the abuse you take.
I don't really get much abuse, and
lucky you.
I think it's because people, when they email me, they're emailing Evan at StoryOrigin. They're not emailing support at Microsoft. right?
Right.
It's like just this black box that you're just gonna hurl insults at. I'm like a human, and when you email me, it's like I'm not replying to like a black box. I'm replying to Evan and telling him that he's awful and he's an awful person. So I really don't get that much. I don't really get any like particularly negative emails from people.
Oh, that's
I
good.
generally speaking, like everyone that uses Story Origin is pretty nice to me, and
Oh,
I feel
good.
very lucky.
That's very good.
Yeah,
Like I said, having worked in customer support, I've seen the dark side of it. But you're right. If you're
I can
emailing
imagine.
just an anonymous, email address, sometimes that anonymity breeds the troll in all of us. Whereas if
Absolutely,
you're
yeah.
emailing somebody directly, a real person, you're a little bit
It's
more
the psychology of it. It's the psychology of it.
Yeah. For sure. And I have my own newsletter for authors that use Story Origin and stuff, and it's like people see those pictures of like me, out walking my dog or whatever, or me, making pies or something like that. And so yeah, it's also not just like Evan at Story Origin. It's like I know that dude's face too. So
Yeah.
That's important. Yeah, that's
yeah,
important. And you're
for
right,
sure.
Jane, the psychology behind it. We're going
Yeah,
to be
it's just like
nicer when we're not in that anonymous state.
so going back 6 years, what made you actually put this together?
Yeah, so I used to write short stories back in high school,
Okay.
and then got interested in tech and entrepreneurship back in college. And then I went and worked for a few years and decided, okay, now's the time. I'm gonna try to make the leap. So I left that role, and I wanted to get back into writing and then build tools for writers at the same time. And I had an idea of like, I want to build this platform that does this. It's sort of like a writing community kind of thing. And authors that I talked to were like, that's cool. How's it going to make me money? And I went, that makes sense. What do you use to help you make money? and they said, I use this service for building my mailing list. I use this service for finding reviewers. I use this service to create universal book links. I arrange newsletter swaps through Facebook groups and like Google Forms. And I'm doing all this crazy stuff on my website. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see the problem here. Like, you have
so
like
many different things.
5 services, you have 8 spreadsheets, you're constantly context switching between what am I doing right now and where is the thing that I need to go to do that thing. And it doesn't help that like all the services are named something very similar to one another.
This book, that.
Yeah. This is why Story Origin is Story Origin. There's not many people that started with story in the company name. So that's that just the building the tools for writers just took over 100% of my time. So I never really got back into writing the way that I wanted to. But I really enjoy what I do. So it's not something that I feel that I'm missing out on because I just really love programming. So.
Okay.
And is this your full-time job, or are you able to translate it into this is the work that you get to do? It facilitates your life as well as, feeds into that dream of creating something that's going to work for everybody.
Yes, I am very, very fortunate. Yeah. I've worked full time on Story Origin for almost 6 years. Let's see. So I left my previous role in July 2017. And so it'll be 7 years in July.
Wow.
Awesome.
That I will have been doing Story Origin full time, which is kind of crazy to me because I only worked full time like for 4 years before starting Story Origin. So I've been doing, running my business, for longer than I ever had was employed by someone else. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of crazy to think about sometimes.
That's
for sure.
Awesome.
That's awesome though.
Seriously, yeah. To be able to find that success so early in your career, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, granted, Story Origin was free for 3 years, and I did not make a single dime for the first 3 years that I was running Story Origin. But it it all worked out. So I'm very lucky and very happy for sure.
So during
got
those first 3 years, like you were building a lot of community during that time.
Yes.
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
building the platform. You were dealing with the community, getting feedback, getting a lot of word of mouth. I mean, that's
Yes.
a wonderfully organic way to build things.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
the community, at least from everybody I know that's used StoryOrigin, has pretty much stuck with it. Like, you've mentioned there are other platforms out there, but if you've been with StoryOrigin, you don't want to trade off to another platform. StoryOrigin keeps growing, keeps doing exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the the website offering that you have and the direct sales, that's a game changer.
For sure.
In the questionable of, yes, I like it, but this, it.
Yeah. Should I build my Shopify store and integrate with some other service and then do something else and have all? Yeah. So
have all these different avenues that I have to update all the time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And the more steps you have to do, like the harder it becomes, the more overwhelming. We've talked about marketing's a full-time job.
Yes.
And you can't do the writing part if you're stuck doing everything else.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you need that singular point of just get this done.
Yes. 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 Like let StoryOrigin help you do this thing to get out of your way so that you can get back to writing instead of, fiddling with trying to build a website or something like that. Right. And
yes.
and cost comparison wise too, StoryOrigin has always been affordable. There are multiple platforms out there and they all have different tiers of service and whatnot. But even when StoryOrigin went to a paid model, it was still on the more affordable end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So you're still providing all of this at a cost savings for authors.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 So StoryOrigin, for those who aren't aware, it's $10 a month or $100 per year. That gets you all of the features on StoryOrigin. Since we're talking about pricing and direct sales and stuff too, I think it's also worth mentioning on the payment processing side. So StoryOrigin integrates with Lemon Squeezy, as I've mentioned. Their pricing model is usually a 50-cent transaction fee plus a 5% transaction fee. So I negotiated a deal with them for StoryOrigin authors that integrate their Lemon Squeezy accounts with StoryOrigin. They've reduced the transaction fee to 30 cents plus 5%. So this is literally the cheapest way to sell direct and have someone else act as merchant of record. Because if you look at any other platform, like I would say the most popular platform for selling direct for authors, I would say, has been PayHip for a long time. And PayHip's great because it's free. And their pricing model is 30 cents plus essentially 8%. So with Lemon Squeezy, it is 30 cents plus 5%. So you're getting you're getting an additional 3% using Lemon Squeezy with StoryOrigin. And if you're using StoryOrigin, you're also getting it with the website builder, so you can have it on your own custom domain versus when you're using something like PayHip, it's going to be on their domain. And so that's one of the other reasons that a lot of authors have moved away from PayHip as well, as like you can't have it on your own custom domain. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if they might have a pricing tier or something like that where you can have it on a custom domain. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at them in a long time. But this is a way to do all that. It's just from like a transaction processing fee perspective, the cheapest like route, unless you want to handle sales tax and VAT and all that stuff yourself, which is a huge.
Which a lot of people are like, no, I don't want to do that. And then it's like, well, you don't have to.
Think about we're words people, not numbers people.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have to do that. I do that stuff for StoryOrigin. Because I mean, I have to register for sales tax and VAT and stuff for selling StoryOrigin. It's not fun. And it's also one of those things where it's like, this is not, this is a relatively time consuming thing to get your head around what you need to do and get all set up in place. And so, even if you choose in selling direct, a lot of authors, they have to figure out whether or not it's going to work for them too, because it's not a simple thing to do necessarily. I mean, StoryOrigin has significantly simplified it, but to really make money with direct sales, there's a lot of like Facebook advertising is really good when you're doing direct sales, but you have to be doing it in the right way, which is like I was saying earlier, you advertise that individual book at like, $199 or $299 or whatever, but then you're upselling that customer on buying a $20 or $25 product to buy the entire series. And that's how you can make the Facebook advertising financially viable, because it's really hard to make Facebook ads work when you're selling a $2 or $3 product just on the like customer acquisition costs. And then you're talking about like the payment processing transaction fees you have to subtract out. And then, it's difficult to make it work when you're selling a $2 or $3 product. It's much easier to make it work when you're selling like a $25 product. And that can allow you to grow a lot more quickly. But yeah, so these are the things that like I think a lot of authors who are currently setting up, Shopify stores in they've already are planning on spending $100+ per month between Shopify and all of the plugins and services they have to add on top of that to sell through Shopify. I think in 12 months, 95% of authors that build a Shopify store will be shutting it down, because they're going to be like, this is very expensive and I don't have the time to throw a ton of Facebook ads at this and all of the money to throw Facebook ads at this. Like I should be doing to run this like operation correctly and all that stuff, following like best practices and all of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, StoryOrigin by being $10 a month means that like, if you're not like super highly optimizing every individual piece of it, it's like, it's still extremely affordable. And then also on top of that, you still get all the other stuff too, which is, so.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a big consideration that a lot of authors, they get the big wide eyes. Oh, I can do this. I can connect this. I can sell and I can do all the direct. And on paper, it sounds good.
And I looked into the costs and I'm like,
and the reality is, the cost is expensive. The advertising has to be done. That's an additional cost.
And I've had my domain where it is since 2010 or 2000 before that. So I've had my own domain and they're like, oh, we won't work with that. We want you to go here. And I'm like, it was like, no. I'm kind of a long-term customer when I really like something.
It doesn't help that the TikTok and a lot of the short form media likes to play up drop shipping as such an easy thing to set up, and it doesn't take anything to do, when the reality is there is a lot that goes into it to do it effectively. And the costs are there. And while yes, it can be done right, it can be done lucratively, there's a lot more time and a lot more know-how invested into it than what these quick 15-minute, marketing guru, hacks are telling you.
And I mean, a lot of that stuff is also like they talk about big revenue numbers, but they also don't talk about the cost side of things too, right? It's like, it's like, I don't know drop shipping is a very interesting space. But yeah, like I think a lot of those people, my general understanding of it is like their costs are essentially almost equal to their revenue, and they live off of the like 3% cash back they get on their credit card, because they're just like doing such massive volume in revenue, but then they're spending all of that revenue on acquiring the product. And so they're literally living on the like the 2% or whatever cash back they get on the credit cards for buying them. It's very interesting. Not really relevant to our conversation, but
No, yeah, that blows my mind.
yeah. And again, I'm like no expert in this domain. You know, I build StoryOrigin. I'm very focused on that. But like occasionally I'll see something that's just in that realm.
Yeah, I've seen so many marketing hacks and Shopify hacks fly across TikTok and stuff, and it's like, oh, they make it sound so easy, but what is the reality behind that? And to connect it back to what we're talking about, you know, there are dropship connections that you can apply to Shopify to do the books direct to your readers, and that means print books too. And like, I have a client that's doing that right now, and I want to follow her numbers to see how it's working out for her, because I like to know what the cost benefit is before I ever dive into anything. So I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines because I've scaled back so much in the last few years. I don't have anything. So now I'm going to back into the deep end. What should I sign up for? What's going to be cost effective? What's going to actually help? And, it's so far, it hasn't been panning out the way that I think she hoped. I'm not saying it's not going to, but it's a lot more work than was initially presented.
Oh yeah. I like the ebook direct sales. The print side scares me because I don't want to be, somebody mailing out stuff.
You can't see
I don't want to have stock. I don't want to. Yeah.
The reality is work. Lots and lots of work. Yes, Anita. Oh, too much work. And that takes away from writing.
Yes. It's funny because quite a few years ago, I had asked my husband about getting Photoshop. And he's like, how much does cover art cost? Don't go there. and is it more worthwhile for you to, learn that and do that? Or is it more worthwhile for you to write? And I'm like, well, I probably will never get to the stage that my cover artists are at, because I don't have really that much of I have a good eye, but I can't execute what I want to see.
The learning curve behind it, it's pretty big.
Yes. And he's like, then just write. And I'm like, okay. So
Affinity came along and it was only $50, not a subscription, and then you can play with Photoshop clone basically.
I have a little bit, but again, it's time.
It is
to learn
time.
Versus time writing. So it's like, where's my time better?
And it's not even the time to, I mean, you could spend 2 months like getting good at digital art, and still the work that you produce is just not going to be to the quality that it needs to be in order to, effectively market your books. Because I mean, it's going to be harder to compete against someone who's been doing it for 10 years full time, and they're just, experts at it.
Exactly.
It depends also a lot on genre and stuff too, because I mean, book covers are very different by genre.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And that's the big thing we've talked about too on cover art is, you've got to have a cover artist that knows your genre. Like it does you no good to spend money on a cover that is not going to hit the marketing trends, because the market knows what it wants, and if you try and buck the trend, you often spend money for nothing.
Right. Yeah.
While perfecting our writing art doesn't compare to someone spending the same time perfecting their cover art. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, that's not to say you can't have a hobby on the side and want to play around with digital art just because you like playing with digital art and occasionally make some marketing stuff. Sure. But, if you're looking for something that's as important as, say, a cover, it's usually better to go with the professional who knows what they're doing.
And I think that this is just like another area too, where you have to understand, like, what is your goal with your writing? Are you writing because you enjoy writing, or are you writing to make a living from it? what is like, because if you're writing just as a hobby and like you just want to have something that is yours and you want to make your own book cover and you're never really planning to ever try to make money from it, then great. Like that is very cool. And I would not say don't pursue that. Like do pursue that if like your goal is to make something that is like wholly you or something. But if your goal is you want to be able to write full time, then you really have to focus on, okay, the writing and the marketing are where I best spend my time, because everything else is generally like a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best way to put it.
Exactly.
What is your goal? Where's your focus? You know, you've got to put your focus on the important bits if you're going to get to your goal.
Yeah.
Yes. And having a marketing tool like StoryOrigin helps save time.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
which
not
is
even
a
just
key.
marketing though.
Yes.
It's organization. It's collecting your information together. It's getting feedback. I mean, there's so many different aspects of it that like it's that Swiss Army knife of author tools.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was, you know, going back to like why I started StoryOrigin, that was my goal, right? Like the I missed the first part of that comment or the comment.
That's the I like playing with digital art.
Photoshopping Katie into weird situations now. Hilarious. Yep. I love it. Yes.
And yeah, she does post those. Those are hilarious.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. I still think my favorite one is the one where she gave me her boobs. That was my favorite
one. And now I have that as a portrait hanging over my fireplace.
Unique, one of a kind art. What can I say? Oh, there we go.
I have no idea what we were talking about.
It's been so long since we've had a complete derailment. We've been so good lately.
Well, leave it to Rebecca to do that to us.
Back on track. Swiss Army knife of author tools.
Yes.
I'm all for the derailments. Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to like I started StoryOrigin because I wanted it to be a one-stop shop for everything you do as an author, and so that's also why like I didn't charge. You know, that's why StoryOrigin was free for the first 3 years, is because I always thought of StoryOrigin sort of, you know, unique value proposition, being that it was a one-stop shop. So I didn't want to just build a thing that did, you know, the same, you know, that did one thing, which you could go to, you know, 2 or 3 other places to do that one thing. It didn't seem to me, you know, why would someone sign up to StoryOrigin in that case? So it wasn't until I built, you know, I built the reader magnets feature first, then the group promos, then the universal book links, then the newsletter swaps, then the group then the review copies feature. And it wasn't, and it was when I had all of that stuff in place that I was like, okay, now's the time where it's like, I feel like I meet the unique value proposition of StoryOrigin being this one place to build your mailing list, like find reviewers, you know, increase sales, do all the cross promotion stuff, which you can't do all that place. You couldn't do all that stuff in one place.
And I like the writing tracker. Yeah.
Yes.
You kept it very affordable. And you know, the writing tracker thing I use all the time, and it usually keeps me on task.
And it's the gold trackers feature is a quite funny one, because a lot I hear somewhat regularly from authors. So when I released the gold trackers feature, I think most authors' reaction was, what are you doing, Evan, and why? And because to that point, pretty much all of StoryOrigin's features were about marketing, like building a mailing list, finding reviewers, doing cross promotions. And then I released the goal trackers feature to track your daily word count. And it was like, to me is like, here's another spreadsheet that you currently maintain as an author, which, I can help you kill this spreadsheet and not have a bunch of, just have, having all these different spreadsheets that you have stuff tracked in. And so I've heard from authors over time, just like, I saw the goal trackers feature on StoryOrigin. I had never tracked my word counts before. And then I just saw it as a feature on StoryOrigin and decided to try it out. And it substantially increased my productivity, because just having that little, here's how many words you need to write every single day. And if I miss a day,
Yeah.
and then the number of words that I need to write goes
Goes
up
up.
because my deadline hasn't changed. I just didn't write any words yesterday, and I still need to finish my, X thousands words to hit that deadline. And so they're like, it's made me substantially more productive, because I'm like, oh, all right, it's like, I gotta keep my daily target down. Yeah.
Accountability partner is helpful. It is.
Yes.
It's that taskmaster you need sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
How easy is it to be like, oh, I'll write tomorrow, I'll write the next day, and then shit.
Then you look at that and go, oh, now I have to write 2,000 words a day to hit that goal.
It's like I'm not sleeping this weekend. And as a ghostwriter, I have done that I don't know how many times. Shit, deadline's on Monday, better get on that.
For sure.
Yes.
It's also wild to me just how much that feature is used. And it's another one of those ones, like the beta copies feature. Authors don't talk about tracking word count or getting feedback from beta readers, like in Facebook groups and stuff like that. But then, like, me personally, like, I know authors because they'll reach out to me and be like, Evan, this goal trackers feature, like, thank you. Or like, this beta copies feature, like, this is huge to me. So people don't ever talk about it, but like, it's under, sort of under the radar. One of the features that a lot of authors that use those features love. And so it's just kind of interesting.
So any new tools on the horizon that you're thinking of, or is that spoilers?
I generally don't. So pretty much literally anything that you can think of is like on my to-do list.
Okay.
My to-do list, I would say is about 2 years long. And I would say, like, 2 years ago, I'd say my to-do list was probably about 2 years long. And I'd say, I think in about 2 years, my to-do list will probably be about 2 years long.
Makes sense.
So there's, I mean, authors just have a lot of problems, let me tell you. And I love programming, so this is a match made in heaven. Because I just like solving problems. And so there's definitely a ton of stuff that I still want to build and add to StoryOrigin, which I think will make it, just that much easier for authors to manage, even more things in one place, or do things that they never thought they would have time for. And like, oh, well, if I can just do this on StoryOrigin because it takes me 3 minutes to, add this page, like, sure, I can do that. That's really simple. Or like, I'm already using this other feature. Like, I had to do that for this feature, so doing it for this other new feature that I want to try or am considering, it's like, it's an easy decision, right? Because it takes no time to set up. So there's definitely a lot that is on the to-do list for sure. I have no specific priorities right now in terms of like exactly which feature is going to be the next big one. Just because I just released this direct sales feature, and I want to spend a decent amount of time right now, actually, just like on the educational side of things, of like helping authors getting started with doing all this stuff and doing it in a manner that, is sort of best practices.
What's the most, I mean, what's one of the things, I know. What's one of the things most authors are vying for? I'll just put it that way. What's the highest requested item that you don't have?
I wouldn't I would have said that was direct sales.
Yeah.
And then I released the feature, and then the immediate responses back that I got from most authors that were in the vein of, okay, is this next? Were like, can I sell audiobooks direct? And can I sell paperbacks direct? Because currently this feature is only for direct sale ebooks.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, those things are on the to-do list for sure. And those were like and this is also sort of recency bias, right? Like I've also because I just released that direct sales feature,
Yes.
I've been getting a lot of feature requests like in
Like,
that
how
same
about
vein
this?
too.
How about that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Exactly.
So there's a recency bias in terms of, is it the most requested feature ever? It's like, well, it's also just something that's like top of mind because it's happened
like now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The direct sales thing, the reason it's so big is authors have been screwed over by the big box stores. Some of them have enough power to shut your account down if they don't like, the way you've sold something, or if, God forbid, somebody has taken your book and posted it up somewhere online, and let's say you're in their unlimited program. Well, now you violated their terms by somebody else doing something, and your account gets shut down. Now you can't sell books. So having a direct sale, having more control, which again is what indie publishing was all about, was having control. Being able to control the distribution puts you in the driver's seat. It allows you to control the pricing, which works on the author end and the customer end, because if you can set fair pricing and still get a livable royalty off of it, you can continue to create without being strangled by the big box stores taking whatever percentages they want and forcing controls. Audiobooks are big on that. The whole Audible gate thing, which never really got resolved. Authors have zero control over the price of their book and how much they get from the sale of their book. And if they don't go with Audible, they have so many more percentage points taken off of each sale because the other outlets don't give them the ability to have the widest distribution. So that's the reason that this direct sales is being called for so much, is we want that control, not just because we want to rake in all the money, but we want to be able to get to our readers.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, StoryOrigin is all about helping authors, empower authors to have those direct connections with readers, right? That's why, StoryOrigin helps you build your mailing list. A lot of, like, for example, when you put up, review copies on StoryOrigin and stuff like that you can choose to publicly list those review copies on StoryOrigin, and readers might stumble upon your review copy, like in the review copy directory on StoryOrigin. But I always tell authors, if you don't have a mailing list, start with that first before trying to get reviews on your books. Build your mailing list first, because those people, that's an audience that you can have direct contact with, and they're going to be much better reviewers for you too than just someone who happens across your book, because the people that are on your mailing list are there generally, like, usually because they picked up one of your reader magnets or something like that, and so they're familiar with your work at least, and so they're just going to be better reviewers because they're familiar with your work too. And so I always tell authors, like, I always encourage authors, build a direct point of contact with your customers. And it's also why building mailing list is better than, social media, or, building like a Facebook page or whatever, right? Or Twitter or something like that, because a lot of times, I mean, those accounts can be suspended or terminated without much, care or reason. And it's also just like a huge time sink too. And it's extremely variable in terms of whether or not it'll work and stuff like that too. And you don't want someone else to be able to turn off how you make a living, right? And so having a mailing list, like, if MailChimp doesn't want to have my, thousands of subscribers on their service, then I'll just move over to one of the many other email service providers. and I own that list of emails, and I can take it to whatever service I want to use to send out those emails. And so it's just, yeah. So along that line of like having that direct point of contact with your readers, having that direct sales channel with your readers where, you know, KDP can't just terminate your account or suspend your account because someone bought your book off of Amazon and then they put it up on on like a pirate website, and now they're blaming you for someone else's actions and then terminating your account and putting your livelihood in jeopardy because someone else's actions is really scary.
Yeah, and it happens more than you think, which is the scarier part.
Yeah.
You know, when they have that unilateral control that they can just do what they want, no questions asked. And even if they do make a mistake, there's no apology afterwards. You're lucky. You should be thanking them if they turn your account back on. Like, this isn't the way things should run. And that's exactly the bottom line, why authors want that control back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is one of the big reasons that a lot of authors are starting to sell direct instead of just going with, you know, enrolling in KU or whatever.
Yeah, so I can see why people are clamoring for the audiobook version, because that is the next big thing. You know, next to e-readers, people are listening to audiobooks more than ever, and being able to control that distribution channel, especially because that's the one that we have the least monetary control over.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's on the to-do list for sure.
That's good to know.
There's no making it right, getting your reader momentum. And that's the other thing too. The momentum goes too. Just it takes a few days for your momentum to die if you're not hitting the algorithms.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, this has been a good chat. I can't believe how fast that hour went. Holy crap.
I know. I just looked up like, oh, it's after an hour already.
Oh, Evan, this has been an amazing, amazing chat. I'm so glad we got you on here to talk about this. And we will put the links to Story Origin in the show notes below. This will also be going out to our podcast tonight, so everybody can get the information. Thank you guys for being in the audience, bringing up your information, asking good questions. Letting us know that you've experienced some of these negative things too. Evan, did you want to share anything else before we go?
People can find Story Origin at StoryOriginApp.com. And if they have any questions or anything like that, they're always welcome to shoot me an email. My email address, if you go to StoryOriginApp.com and you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see my face, you'll see my name, you'll see my email address. I'm always super open and transparent about everything. So anyone's always welcome to reach out to me. My inbox is always open.
And unlike other inboxes, his is a real inbox. It's a real person you're talking to.
Yes.
Well, we have got to have you back on again sooner than a few years, because that's way too long.
Sounds good. I've enjoyed it. So I look forward to coming on again.
Definitely. Same here. This has been a good conversation. So everyone, we will see you guys next time. Thank you for hanging out with us. Post some comments below. Let us know who else you want to bring on to the show. Any questions you might have that we can forward on to Evan later, or like you said, email directly. I will be putting the information in the show notes below after we get offline here. So until then, guys, we'll see you later.